Could a massive move be coming for the Miami Dolphins? With Tyreek Hill sidelined for the rest of the year, the buzz around Miami is only growing. Rumors are swirling that the Dolphins could look to bring in another wide receiver to keep this offense explosive. On Tuesday, the team signed Cedric Wilson Jr. off the Saints practice squad, adding him to a depth chart that shows promise but still feels uncertain. Outside of Jalen Waddle, the only true proven playmaker left, the rest of the group carries more question marks than answers. Malik Washington is still developing. Nick Westbrook-Ikine has struggled to make an impact, and names like Dwayne Eskridge, Taj Washington, and Cedric Wilson Jr. aren't expected to be game changers. But before we dive deeper, don't forget, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and of course, tap the bell icon so you never miss an update. Now, back to Miami's situation. I'll be honest, I doubt the Dolphins pull off a blockbuster trade, but with Chris Grier running the show, you never know. This is a GM who's not afraid to swing big. We saw it with the Tyreek Hill deal, the Jalen Ramsey trade, and the Bradley Chubb move. If there's a chance to land a proven veteran at the right price, Grier will pounce. And here's the twist. Some big-name receivers around the league haven't exactly gotten off to hot starts this season. Their trade value might be lower than usual. That opens the door for Miami to make a sneaky move, especially with Hill's injury looming large. So let's break it down. First on the radar, A.J. Brown, the Philadelphia Eagles star wideout. Could Miami actually make a push for him? Let's talk about it. A.J. Brown is off to a surprisingly rough start this season. Through the first 4 weeks, he's managed just 14 receptions for 151 yards and a single touchdown. Hard to believe, considering just a year ago he was tearing through defenses and putting up one of the most dominant stretches we've seen in years. Remember those streaks of 100-yard, multi-catch games? That was peak A.J. Brown. Fast forward to now, and it's almost shocking how quiet he's been. What makes it even more wild? The Eagles are 4-0, and they've gotten there without Brown being a major factor. And it's not like he hasn't been targeted. After week 1, when he only had a single catch on a single target, Jalen Hurts has been looking his way plenty. 8 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets. But outside of one decent showing in week 3 against the Rams, Brown hasn't turned those opportunities into consistent production. Week 2, just 5 catches. Week 4, only 2 grabs. That's not what you expect from a superstar of his caliber. The advanced numbers paint an even tougher picture. His catch rate sits at 50%, meaning Hurts is connecting with him only half the time. Analytics suggest it should be slightly better, but it's still well below expectations. His average separation per target is just 1.7 yards, showing he's struggling to consistently get open. And when you look at efficiency, it gets worse. His EPA per reception is negative, meaning the Eagles' offense statistically performs better when the ball isn't going his way. Bottom line, A.J. Brown hasn't been himself this year, and that raises a massive question. If his struggles continue, could Philadelphia actually consider moving him while his value is still high, especially if the Dolphins come calling? It's been a frustrating year for A.J. Brown, and he's made it clear he's not happy with how things are going in Philadelphia. After the Eagles' Week 4 win against the Buccaneers, Brown posted a cryptic message, essentially saying that if you're not valued or listened to, it's better to just step away quietly rather than cause a scene. That speaks volumes. It feels like Brown doesn't see himself being appreciated in this offense. And honestly, who could blame him? He's one of the most dangerous wide receivers in football, but he's stuck in a run-heavy system with a quarterback who hasn't been consistently pushing the ball downfield. You can tell, deep down, Brown would likely welcome a fresh start, maybe even hope for a trade. Now here's the real question for fans. If you're the Dolphins, do you go all in and make a move after Tyreek Hill's injury? Or do you ride with what you have, let this season play out, and reassess in the offseason? Let us know. Type Y if you'd pull the trigger on a trade, or N if you'd hold off. Of course, when we talk trades, contracts always come into play. Brown is still in his prime at 28 years old, but his deal is far from small. While his base salary isn't outrageous, his cap hits and roster bonuses climb higher and higher every season. That means if Miami were to bring him in, the first year might not feel like a burden, but over the next several seasons, the numbers would start to stack up. And that's the heart of the debate. Miami is a win-now team, But does adding A.J. Brown really fit long-term with their roster construction and salary cap outlook? It's not an easy call, and it might just be why this move, while exciting, could end up being more fantasy than reality. Here's the challenge with A.J. Brown. You're talking about a superstar who demands targets, and when he doesn't get them, it can create problems inside the offense. On top of that, his contract is massive, over $20 million a year. And let's be real, the Dolphins have bigger needs. Their offensive line needs work, the defensive front could use more depth, and the secondary isn't perfect either. If you list out Miami's issues, wide receiver isn't at the very top, especially when you compare it to positions like safety or running back. So is it really worth splashing big money on another wideout? For a cheaper option, maybe. But for a $20 million player, that's a much tougher sell. And that leads us to another name, DJ Moore, the star wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. He's making similar money to Brown, and his situation feels strangely similar. Just a year ago, people were calling Moore a top 15 receiver in the league. Now he's off to a slow start that mirrors A.J. Brown's struggles. Through 4 weeks, Moore has just 16 catches for 170 yards, with nearly the same yards per catch as Brown. But what stands out isn't just the stats, it's how Chicago is using him. He's been lined up in the backfield like a running back, he's been heavily involved in screen plays, and he hasn't gotten many true downfield opportunities. Instead, the Bears have been prioritizing rookie Rome Odunze and finding ways to get Luther Burden involved. With new coaching in place and a fresh offensive system under Ben Johnson, Chicago's attack has looked different, and Moore has become almost an afterthought. The chemistry with Caleb Williams hasn't translated into the explosive plays fans expected, and Moore's production has suffered because of it. So now the question becomes, would the Dolphins be better off chasing a player like Moore, or should they hold back and avoid sinking money into another expensive wideout? DJ Moore's slow start has already sparked speculation that he could be on the trade block. And honestly, it makes sense. Like A.J. Brown, Moore is a premier receiver who isn't being used to his full potential, and frustration is starting to build. But here's the catch, his contract. After Chicago extended him following that strong run with Justin Fields a couple of seasons ago, Moore's deal has ballooned into the $25 to $28 million per year range. At 28 years old, he's in the same age bracket as Brown, and those massive cap hits are becoming harder and harder to justify. For a team like Miami, that presents a real problem. While Moore would bring playmaking ability and experience, absorbing a contract that big doesn't make much sense. The Dolphins already have major financial commitments on the books, and wide receiver isn't their most pressing need. Offensive line help, defensive depth, and secondary reinforcements rank higher on the priority list. That's why, even though Moore might be a legitimate trade candidate league-wide, it feels like a long shot for Miami. The cost of bringing him in, both in draft capital and salary cap space, could outweigh the potential reward. Now don't get me wrong, pairing DJ Moore or A.J. Brown with Jalen Waddle would be electric. Mike McDaniel would know exactly how to unlock either one of them. But the reality is simple. Miami cannot afford to sink massive draft capital and over $20 million a year into another veteran receiver. Those resources are needed in the trenches and in the secondary if this team wants to stay a contender long-term. That's why the most realistic and sensible option might be Jakobi Meyers, the Raiders wideout who Miami knows all too well from his years with the Patriots. And here's the twist. Out of the 3 names we've discussed, A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, and Jakobi Meyers, it's Meyers who's been the most productive so far this season. He's got more receptions, more yards, and has looked more explosive overall. Sure, he hasn't found the end zone yet, while Brown and Moore each have 1 score, but in terms of consistent production, Meyers is outshining them. And here's why this makes even more sense for Miami, his contract. Meyers is in the final year of a 3-year deal with the Raiders, carrying just a $10.5 million base salary. That's a fraction of the cost compared to Brown or Moore. Financially, it's much more manageable, and on the field, he brings reliability and familiarity with Miami's system. Unlike A.J. Brown and DJ Moore, a move for Jakobi Meyers wouldn't break the bank, and that alone makes him the most realistic trade target for the Dolphins. If Miami were to trade for Jakobi Meyers, it wouldn't tie them down long-term. They'd have the flexibility to test him out this season and then decide in the offseason whether to extend him or let him walk. Realistically, it might only take a day 3 draft pick or even a player-for-player swap to get a deal done. With the Raiders sitting at 1-3, struggling through 3 straight losses to the Bears, Commanders, and Chargers, their season looks shaky. If they're not planning to keep Meyers and don't want to pay him big money in free agency, trading him now makes sense. That's why Meyers is the most logical trade target. He's affordable, productive, and fits Miami's system. But here's the truth. I don't actually believe the Dolphins need to make a move at wide receiver. With Tyreek Hill sidelined, yes, the depth will be tested, but Miami still has talent with guys like Taj Washington, Malik Washington, and Nick Westbrook-Ikine. Promoting from within or making a cheaper signing could be just as effective without sacrificing draft capital or future flexibility. So I'll throw it back to you. If you're the Dolphins, who's your top trade target? Is it A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, Jakobi Meyers? Or do you stand pat and trust the roster you've got? Drop your answer down in the comments. The Dolphins already made one move this week by bringing back Cedric Wilson Jr., but there's also the option of promoting Theo Wease Jr. from the practice squad. The rookie showed flashes in the preseason, hauling in 10 catches for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sure, most of that came against third-string defenses, and he doesn't yet have chemistry with Tua Tagovailoa, but the potential is there. If Miami isn't satisfied with Wilson or their current depth, free agency is another path. Names like Deontay Johnson, DJ Chark, Tyler Boyd, Robert Woods, and KJ Osborne are still available. Solid veterans, familiar names, but none of them are likely to be long-term solutions or true difference makers. That's why the most realistic outcome. The Dolphins probably roll with what they've already got. Cedric Wilson Jr. is back. Theo Wease Jr. could earn a call-up, and the rest of the depth chart will get their chance to prove they belong. So here's the bottom line. Whether it's a blockbuster trade, a free agent signing, or simply promoting from within, Miami's wide receiver room is about to be tested like never before. And how they handle this challenge could define the rest of their season.